Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. In an interview, Nkema Song said, with the propaganda wing of the CPDM CRTV, that the peaceful conduct of La Republic du Cameroon CPDM senatorial elections in Menji local government area on Sunday is proof of the return of peace in the town that was considered a dead end a few years ago. How long will the window dressing of normalcy be portrayed by the oppressive regime, we wonder? Meanwhile, the life of the masses of both Cameroons has not been any better as their leaders have been said to only fight to get into power, to embezzle and fuel their pockets only. This has led to la vie chère for so long amongst Ambazonians in order to meet up with the high cost of living in La Republic du Cameroon. Frustrated young men and women have devised way to make ends meet. They pick up stones, knives, cutlasses, and even firearms, which they now use to terrorize drivers, passengers at night journeys, kill and seize money and other valuables. This is very unfortunate. In Undaunted tonight, we'll get into the crux of the matter. But for now, let's have the prime headlines.
All right, these are the prime headlines for today. Colonial La Republic du Cameroon CPDM mayor says peace is returning to Menji local government area. How is that possible? Well, we'll find out today. Insecurity rocking La Republic du Cameroon is a story that will sadden you, but then it will be of interest to you. Also today, we will be looking at the story Ukraine president insists that his forces will win. We still have reports from West Africa and Nigeria as well. And in sports, the BBC reinstates star soccer host Gary Linker after impartiality stop. Well, that's it for the headlines. Now let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amber News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
Nearly 6 years since the headquarters of Libya Lam County, Menji local government area became deserted due to Ambazonian armed conflict. The town's colonial CPDM mayor, Nicasius Nkamasong, has said peace is returning to the area. Nicasius Nkamasong said in an interview with the propaganda wing of the CPDM CRTV that the peaceful conduct of La Republic du Cameroon CPDM senatorial elections in Menji local government area on Sunday is proof of the return of peace in the town that was considered a dead end few weeks ago. Mayor Nkemesong was proud that 102 councillors from the three CPDM municipal councils in Libialem were in Menji local government area to vote. It is clear, or should we say that it is a clear indication that life in Menji is coming back to normal. That's what he said. Well, while we're still trying to get more on this, I would say that this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Onyo Bala. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, very well, Onyi. Good evening, Ambazonians. Well, still on the report, Undaunted notes that Menji, the headquarters of Funtem local government area and capital of Lebialem County, has during the past years of the Ambazonian armed conflict been ungovernable. Since 2018, the Ambazonian freedom fighters christened the Red Dragons has launched attacks upon attacks in confrontation with the colonial La Republic du Cameroon military on the town, causing the closure of colonial La Republic du Cameroon's government services and displacement of the local population.
In August 2022, the leader of the Red Dragons, a once dreaded Amba fighter, Olivia Likiake, who is also known as FM, was killed, and these greatly activities of the freedom fighter in Lebelem County, Menji local government area, has been among the worst affected in the conflict hitting the Amber land.
All right, now on to our next report. We take a look at the insecurity rocking La Republic du Cameroon. Well, in order to meet up with the high cost of living in La Republic du Cameroon, frustrated young men and women have devised a way to make ends meet. They pick up stones, knives, cutlasses, and even firearms, which they now use to terrorize drivers and passengers on night journeys, and sometimes kill and seize money and other valuables. On the 9th of March, 10 to 11, 2023, a truck driver was attacked and killed in the neighboring La Republic du Cameroon town of Bangante in that manner.
The victim was mowed down by a bullet in the head at the first speed break of the watermelon market while he was trying to join the funeral of a loved one in Bafoussam. Investigations are ongoing and the authorities are calling for vigilance on the country's roads. On the night breaking Sunday, March 13th, several intercity transport buses and trucks were attacked on the Douala Yaoundé axis, particularly between Edi and Puma in the Sanaga maritime littoral areas.
Well, the robbers' modus operandi consists of throwing a huge stone on the windshield of the driver's side in order to force him to stop. Once the vehicle is stationed, they invade it and rob the passengers. And during the passengers drivers and passengers are urged to exercise caution and avoid traveling at night. The Colonial La Republic du Cameroon authorities have also called for collaborations to help combat the scourge which threatens the safety of citizens.
Well, this phenomenon started in the neighboring La Republic du Cameroon town of Douala under the code name Microbes, where mayhem reigned on innocent denizens from Douala. It spread tentacles to other towns and now on the highways. When Ambazonia shall have justice, La Republic shall know peace.
All right, now let's take a look at Africa. In West Africa, Nigeria, still on the Nigerian post election events, Vanguard, a Nigerian newspaper, writes 2023 elections, a betrayal, tragedy, and shame. This is by Tony Elwemuno, and it says it is tragic for a nation to go through the hollow ritual of holding an election every 4 years. It is tragic for a nation that their president and chairman of an electoral body would openly commit themselves to organizing free and fair elections and then go ahead and conduct the worst elections in the history of the world after having deliberately refused to engage an array of computing and telephony equipment that had been purchased for such purpose. Such acts of lawlessness and criminality always weaken a society. The shame of it all. It's shameful that our leaders are shameless. Tony Elwemuna for Vanguard.
Well, the last interesting part from Vanguard says since the criminality that was passed off as an election on February 25th, 2023 took place, the INEC chairman has not altered a word of regret and apology. He has shown no sense of remorse for having failed an entire country. Nigerians feel that they have been failed. And worst of all, less than a week after the flawed election, the president of Nigeria, President Buhari, traveled to Qatar. Now, his fourth foreign trip in 2023, that's what the record says. Now, that is to attend the fifth United Nations Conference on least developed countries. Meanwhile, the case that took the Labour Party to court with the purpose of reclaiming their mandate is yet to come to a definite close.
The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, LP Peter Obi, has revealed the party and obedient, that is, those of his followers, next line of action if the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, fails to grant them permission to inspect the sensitive materials used in the conduct of the February 25th, 2023 presidential and National Assembly elections. But their next line of action is something we on Undaunted will keep a close watch on until the case comes to a final judgment. We'll be bringing you updates. As you've heard, the criticality of the Nigerian presidential elections to Africa and the world in entirety has got the entire world watching closely. If the elections end with too many of its citizens complaining of irregularities and alleged rigging, then that would also have a toll on the reputation of the giant of Africa, Nigeria, to the world.
On Nigeria's general elections, so far there has been no report of postponing it a second time for reasons of the still ongoing case on INEC's transparency. The same electoral body that carry out the upcoming gubernatorial elections. Last week, the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC rescheduled the gubernatorial elections to March 18th, 2023 from March 11th, 2023. This weekend, Nigerians will exercise their civic rights by heading to the polls again to elect their state governors and House of Assembly representatives. But the question is, will their votes count this time? Would it be free, fair, and even credible?
Well, still in Nigeria, unfortunately, the cash crisis that started with the sole aim of the Central Bank of Nigeria trying to cut out the chances of votes buying has not stopped. While many Nigerians wonder why the cash flow hasn't returned to normal, others are asking similar questions like when will the cash be back in circulation? Despite the Supreme Court's ruling that the old 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1000 naira notes remain legal tender until December 31st, 2023, traders and business owners are refusing to accept the old note.
While the Central Bank of Nigeria has directed commercial banks to dispense and receive the old Naira note as legal tender across the country. The CBN gave the directive at a bankers committee meeting held on Sunday, according to a statement by the acting director CBN Corporate Communications Issa Abdul Mumin on Monday. While many Nigerians are still skeptical about taking the old Naira notes, some states in Nigeria, such as Ekiti, Kogi, and Kaduna, have pleaded with the public to transact with old currency notes and also threatened to prosecute those who refuse to obey the Apex Court order to accept the old notes.
Now, in recent developments, the CBN recently issued operational guidelines for open banking in Nigeria. This is to enhance innovation and expand financial services for customers. Open banking is the sharing of financial information electronically, securely, and only under conditions that customers approve of it. It enables third party developers to build applications and services around the financial institution, particularly the banks that hold customer data. More on these developments from Nigeria to come as they unfold.
All right, let's give you update on the Russia and Ukraine war. While Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has insisted his forces must win the battle for Bakhmut in Donetsk, eastern Ukraine, as doubts continues over whether Ukraine should spend manpower and resources on defending the besieged city in Donetsk. According to Zelensky, he says, as always, today I was in touch with our commanders. With intelligence, it is very hard in the east. He says it's very painful.
Well, he insists that he must destroy the enemy's military power, and we will destroy it. He also said that the defense of settlements, big and small, such as Bilohorivka and Advika, Bakhmut and Volodar, could determine that Ukraine's future looks like. Well, there are doubts over the merits of defending Bakhmut, a city said to be almost completely surrounded by Russian forces and mercenary units. Ukrainian military analyst Ole Zanov said Ukraine was suffering losses among reserves in it intended to use in planning a counteroffensive against Russian forces expected in late spring.
Meanwhile, on the other hand, Russian parliament votes to censor criticism of mercenary groups. Russia's lower house of parliament, the State Duma, voted on Tuesday to approve an amendment that would punish those found guilty of discrediting voter groups fighting in Ukraine, extending the law that censors criticism of Russia's armed forces. The amendment is seen as a move to protect fighters working for the private Wagner Group, a mercenary force which is leading Russia's campaign for eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut.
The bill needs to be approved by the parliament upper house before passing to President Vladimir Putin for final approval. Wagner founder Yevgeny Prigozhin has welcomed the proposals, an expansion of Russia's wartime censorship measures introduced after Moscow invaded Ukraine. Prigozhin asked parliament in January to ban negative media reports about his men by amending the criminal code, an idea Duma Speaker Vyacheslav Volodin quickly said he backed.
While under Russia's current laws, discrediting the army can be punished by up to 5 years in prison, While spreading knowingly false information about it, it can attract a 15-year jail sentence. Russian prosecutors have already opened more than 5,800 cases against people for discrediting the armed forces, the OVD Info Rights Group says. While authorities have also used the laws against spreading false information to hound down lengthy jail term sentences to long term, Kremlin critic says. All right, and coming up next is sports. All right, and in sports, Gary Lineker, who resumes his duty on the BBC's flagship soccer show after an impartiality storm over his criticism of the government's asylum policy that plunged Britain's public broadcaster into shedding chaos over the weekend.
Well, in tennis, British number one Emma Raducanu put in an impressive show to beat Beatrice Haddad Maia 6-1, 2-6, 6-4 in the third round and at Indian Wells. Raducanu, 20, broke the Brazilian world number 13 twice in the first set, but dropped her serve twice. Gabellison has more.
Latest world sports. Football. BBC wins state star soccer host Gary Lineker after impartiality storm. Gary Lineker will resume his duties on the BBC's flagship soccer show after an impartiality storm over his criticism of the government's asylum policy that plunged Britain's public broadcaster into scheduling chaos over the weekend. In a statement on Monday, the BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, said he recognized it had been a difficult period for staff, but that he was looking forward to Lineker's reinstatement. He also announced a review of the BBC's social media guidance would be led by an independent expert, acknowledging the existing guidance had caused potential confusion. Gary is a valued part of the BBC, and I know how much the BBC means to Gary, and I look forward to him presenting our coverage this coming weekend, the statement read. Lineker, a former professional soccer player who has presented Match of the Day for almost 25 years, was suspended by the BBC on Friday following controversy surrounding a tweet he wrote criticizing the UK government's new asylum seeker policy. Since the suspension was announced, the BBC has faced a boycott from pundits, presenters, and even players of its flagship soccer show, while other soccer programs, Football Focus, and finals and some radio programming were forced off air over the weekend as a result of the furore. Lineker, 62, welcomed the news of his reinstatement on Twitter, saying it had been a surreal few days. I'm delighted that we have navigated a way through this, he tweeted Monday. I want to thank you all for the incredible support, particularly my colleagues at BBC Sport, for the remote show of solidarity. Football is a team game, but their backing was overwhelming. While thanking Davey for his understanding during this difficult time, Lineker tweeted that however difficult the last few days have been, it simply doesn't compare to having to flee your home from persecution or war to seek refuge in a land far away. He added, it's heartwarming to have seen the empathy towards their plight from so many of you. Tennis. Indian Wells. Emma Raducanu beats Beatrice Haddad to reach last 16. British number one Emma Raducanu put in an impressive showing to beat Beatrice Haddad 6-1, 2-6, 6-4 in the third round at Indian Wells. Raducanu, 20, broke the Brazilian world number 13 twice in the first set, but dropped her serve twice. In the decider, Raducanu produced some brilliant tennis, breaking Haddad Maia in the seventh game before serving out the match in California. She will play world number one Iga Swiatek in the last 16. Poland Swiatek beat Canadian Bianca Andreescu 6-3, 7-6, 7-1. I wanted to step up and be more aggressive, and if I were to lose, then I would lose going for my shorts and doing the right things, Raducanu told BBC Sport. Last year, I would probably get more tentative in those moments, but today and more recently, I've been going for my shorts more. Raducanu only decided to play in the tournament 20 minutes before her first match amid illness and a recurring wrist injury. Victory completed in 2 hours, 19 minutes was her first against the top 20 since she won the US Open in 2021. For me, it's pretty amazing, Raducanu told Amazon Prime. I haven't really prepared for this tournament or practiced. So to come out and play at this level and be competitive is a great sign for me. Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina beat Spaniard Paula Badoza 6-3, 7-5, while France Caroline Garcia also reached the last 16 courtesy of a 6-4, 6-7, 7-5, 6-1 win over Canadian Leila Fernandez. Qualifier Varvara Krajeva shocked 8th seed and fellow Russian Daria Kazatkina to set up a tie with Kazakhstan's Rybakina. Baseball. World Baseball Classic. Great Britain beat Colombia 7-5 for first tournament win. Great Britain have earned a historic first win at the World Baseball Classic after beating Colombia on Monday. Great Britain are making their tournament debut at the 5th edition of the WBC and lost to defending champions USA and Canada over the weekend in Phoenix, Arizona. But they regrouped to come from behind at Chase Field and clinch what could be significant 7-5 win over Colombia. Finishing fourth out of the 5 teams in Pool C would clinch automatic qualification for the next WBC in 2026. After going ahead against the USA and Canada, the debutants trailed 3-0 against Colombia. Kachahari Ford, 20, a Seattle Mariners prospect, sparked the British fight back in the third inning with the first of 7 unanswered runs. Jaden Root put Great Britain 5-3 up with a 2-run double in the 5th innings before Ford, one of Major League Baseball's brightest prospects, scored a home run for the second consecutive day. That helped Great Britain gain a 7-3 lead in the 7th inning, and although Cincinnati Reds pitcher Lan Gibbard gave out 2 runs in the top of the 9th, they held on to secure a landmark victory. Britain faced Mexico in their final pool game on Tuesday evening, 200 GMT on Wednesday morning, with all Pool C games being played at Chase Field in Phoenix. Gab Ellison reporting from Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
All right, thank you so much, Gab Ellison, for that report. All right, and with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a look at our recap for today.
The Colonial Republic of Cameroon CPDM mayor says peace is returning to Menji local government area. That's what we looked at tonight, and also the insecurity rocking La Republic of Cameroon.
All right, we also told you that Ukraine's president insists that his forces will win in the next. And also in sports, BBC reinstates star soccer host after impartiality storm. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted. All right, thank you so much for tuning in.
We'll leave you with ABC Amber TV images. Good night and God bless you.